If only I knew how to do my own sound mixing, then, the carpenters outside, the birds, the dog, the, motorcycles and stuff passing by, if only I could just filter them out. Okay, I really need this right now. Peace and quiet. Okay, now it's part 8 of my Oscar coverage, and this time we're talking about sound mixing. And like I was talking about last time, the difference I think between sound mixing and sound editing is that sound editing refers to like sound effects itself. Sound mixing refers to how these sounds are put together. And there's a reason why this Oscar was called, best sound back in the day, and now they made it sound mixing to kind of differentiate the two. And again, this is just my idea of it. I could be completely wrong, but we'll just get into that later on. We'll see first who are the nominees? The nominees for Best Sound Mixing are Captain Phillips, Chris Burden, Mark Taylor, Mike Prestwood, Smith, and Chris Monroe. Gravity, Skip Leavesay, Niv Adiri, Christopher Benstead, and Chris Monroe. The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug, Christopher Boyes, Michael Hedges, Michael Szymanczyk, and Tony Johnson. Inside Llewyn Davis, Skip Leavesay, Greg Orloff, and Peter F. Kurland. And Lone Survivor, Andy Koyama, Bo Borders, and David Brownlow. Again, this is a nice list. It's very varied, but it does, feel like a copy-paste of sound editing, which is what I think happens every year. But here, like, the only difference is that All Is Lost has been swapped out for Inside Llewyn Davis. And, I'd appreciate it if, there were more movies that were recognized. But anyway, this is what we have, and I'm going to attempt to, talk about them to the best of my abilities. Apologies if I don't really know much about sound. I really don't. Anyway, so at 5th, I will be putting The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. There is so much that happens in this movie that is actually pretty impressive about, the kind of stuff they put in terms of sound mixing. I forgot to mention that in terms of sound mixing, what one of my criteria is like, what sounds they choose to highlight, and how all these sounds can come together and immerse you into an experience. And in terms of The Hobbit, like during all these fight scenes and whatnot, you really do get the sense that this is a big scale thing. Like the three major fight like scenes that I remember from The Hobbit are the spider scene, the barrel scene, and Smaug. And all these scenes sound really busy, there are lots of things happening in the background that really add to the overall immersion. The spiders, of course, you have the spiders, you have the people fighting against the spiders, and you have the elves who come in. And then in the barrel scene, you have the elves and the orcs, and the barrel and the water. And then in the Smaug scene, you have all the gold in the background. However, again, The Hobbit ends up in 5th place because it's nothing we haven't heard before. It's nothing like that mind-blowing, really. I think The Hobbit still is more about its visuals than its sound stuff, but that might just be me. Okay, at 4th place is a movie I thought would be higher up on this list, but I'm putting Inside Llewyn Davis at 4th. Inside Llewyn Davis is really impressive in its song scenes. When Llewyn Davis is singing in a bar and stuff, you still hear the clink of the glasses, you still hear people talking in the background, and then, of course, you hear Llewyn singing and playing his guitar. But I thought the way they did it here was so authentic because never felt like a musical where the movie like takes a break and goes to a song. It really does feel like the movie's still going on. It's just that this guy just started singing a song, and I like how they highlighted the fact that when people sing in bars, not everyone listens. It's not spotlight on you and then everyone listens. It's really it showed how Llewyn is kind of in his own little world, while other people don't necessarily see that all the time. And I like that. But the reason why Inside Llewyn Davis ends up at 4th is because the rest of the movie doesn't really have this kind of spotlight on sound. It's really just these musical portions, in my opinion. And while these were well done, like they don't take up the majority of the movie. So there just wasn't enough for me. 4th place. Now 3rd place is Captain Phillips. Now again, like I mentioned before, thrillers really have the capacity to use sound to the best of its function. And here in Captain Phillips, which is a straight up thriller, like again, there's lots of use of silence, but at the same time, just hearing individual breathing, hearing footsteps and stuff, it really adds to that scary factor. Like a lot of this movie is pretty scary. Near the end of this movie, when you have multiple voices talking, you really do feel like you're caught in between all this chatter and stuff. And that's I think that is a good achievement, because not all movies would choose to do that and would choose to make certain things not intentionally not audible to the audience. So I think that is a wise move. However, it does end up at 3rd place, again, because it's still nothing we haven't heard before. Now at 2nd place, I'm going to put Lone Survivor. Now Lone Survivor, again, was a movie that I really paid attention to the sound, and I really appreciated it for that. And it really stood out for me when the big battle scene starts and Mark Wahlberg and the other guys are just kind of hiding in the trees and stuff. And literally every sound here matters, like rustling of leaves and then someone's voice, a bird flying or something like that. Because really, when you are in a situation as dangerous as this, you really do have to pay attention. And this movie really makes the viewer pay attention to the sounds and make you feel, you know, the fear, the tension in it. And when the guns start going off, like it doesn't feel like blaring. It doesn't feel painful to the ears. Really, you really hear every individual shot, and it's so impressive because again, war movies don't necessarily go down this route all the time. But the fact that Lone Survivor was able to pull it off so well is a really good feat. So second place. At first place, I'm gonna have to put Gravity, man. Like, in terms of sound, like, there's no other movie that came out last year that beats Gravity here. Really, just the way they decided to muffle everything, the way, all of this somehow still came together beautifully. It really, really, I think, does deserve this Oscar because it manages to do two things simultaneously. It makes you feel like you're in a wide open space, and it makes you feel claustrophobic. And those are two polar opposites, and somehow it pulls that off. It makes you feel isolated, and that is a really tough thing to do because you feel detached, but at the same time you feel like you're there. And it's indescribable how they're able to pull that off. So huge props to them. And in terms of who I think will win the Oscar, again, I'm giving it to Gravity. All these other movies, all these other movies again, aren't necessarily super new or unique. Whereas Gravity really shows us something new and shows us what we can do with this kind of sound, especially in movies set in space. Part of me hopes Inside Llewyn Davis would win this just so it wins something because I really, really want it to win something. But in the end, I think Gravity really will sweep this and take it home. So yeah. Alright, so what do you guys think about the nominees for this year's sound mixing? Who do you think will win? Who do you think should win? If you agree with my opinions or if you disagree, whatever you think, please leave a comment. Let's have a conversation.